So all the way back in 2021, I finally got my hands on Doom 2016. I'd been excited to play the game since it was released, enthralled by the look of the combat, the characterization of the Doomslayer, and the music. No kidding, hearing Mick Gordon's score for this game was an awakening for me. I listened to the OST over and over again before I even owned a copy of the game. I mean, just listen to this shit. You could make a fucking religion out of this.
In the first age, in the first battle, when the shadows first lengthened, one stood.
So, finally armed with a PC that could actually run the bloody thing, and a healthy Steam discount, I sat down to boot up the game. It would take me 2 years to finish it. Even that required some effort on my part. I set myself down at the end of 2023 and insisted that I finish the game before the new year rolled around. I hadn't even left myself that far to go. The final push only consisted of perhaps 3 levels and 2 boss fights. And they weren't hard. I hadn't dropped the game because it was too challenging. I dropped it because it frustrated me. Let's wind back to the beginning. Doom 2016, henceforth referred to simply as Doom, sold itself on the fantasy of relentless, hate-fueled violence. Its campaign was supposed to be short, but viscerally satisfying. I was looking to drop in, blast some demons, and hop out. And Doom has that experience. But it also has more. Part of Doom's mechanics is a progression system throughout its campaign. Going through each level of Doom results in the Doomslayer growing stronger and stronger as he continues to rampage against the forces of hell. First and foremost, your arsenal of weapons expands as you go, providing variety and options until you are a veritable Swiss Army knife of destruction. On top of that, you can find drones that provide you with alternative firing modes for each of your guns. Not only that, but you can upgrade these weapons with weapon points, with separate upgrade paths for each alternative fire upgrade. Once you fully upgrade a path, you then have to complete a challenge using that specific alt fire on that specific gun to unlock a mastery upgrade. You may need to complete the challenge multiple times to unlock the mastery. Now, the weapon upgrade points are earned both through fighting through a level and by completing challenges within each level. Most of these are combat orientated, asking you to kill a certain number of enemies in a certain way. Along with weapon upgrades, there are also upgrades for your armor, which provide beneficial perks to aid your playstyle. These are purchased using armor tokens that are found throughout the level. There are also Argent cells that give you a small upgrade to your max health, armor, and ammo capacity. Also, you can find runes that take you to a small pocket dimension to complete bespoke challenges, upon whose completion you gain access to a passive ability that you can equip up to 3 of at a time that can be further enhanced by completing more optional side objectives as you play through the campaign. And there's also collectible Doom Guy action figures which don't provide any mechanical benefit, and secret rooms which can be required to get all the weapon upgrade points for a level. There's just too much going on here. None of these upgrades individually are bad. The fact that they offer mechanical variations instead of raw value multipliers is really cool. But having various different upgrades scattered around in side rooms and dead ends leads me to checking the map after every combat encounter to check where everything is, which is a problem only exacerbated by the fact that levels regularly include points of no return, where the only way to get an upgrade that you missed is to play the level over again. Furthermore, Doom's traversal is just not that interesting. The maps are well decorated, and I don't think I have a problem with their design outside of the points of no return. Probably best not to abbreviate that, but navigating them is entirely pedestrian. Doom is not a game whose core mechanics make for rewarding exploration or platforming, and yet the game includes a significant quantity of that in its levels. The upgrades that you unlock through combat challenges instead aren't much better, because in reality, they encourage you to play counterintuitively. A lot of these challenges require both careful positioning and an unreasonable amount of restraint for a game whose core philosophy is rip and tear until it is done. I am no longer fulfilling the fantasy of the Doomslayer while trying to complete these challenges, which is frustrating, because I am trying to complete them because I want that fantasy. I want to feel as powerful as possible. I want to feel like a perfect killing machine. But this system doesn't just delay gratification, it actively undermines it. Need to kill a certain number of enemies with explosive barrels? How about you guess how many of those are even in this level, and how big a barrel explosion is, and what enemies it will actually kill. Hope you enjoy herding basic enemies around until they're all standing around a single fucking barrel. For this challenge, you need to kill 4 of these enemies by performing a melee finisher on their left leg. Now, is that your left or my left? Think fast, Chucklenuts. Oh, you got it wrong? Don't worry, there's maybe 5 of these guys later in the level, and I'm sure you'll enjoy not getting to kill them in any other way until the objective is completed, or accidentally targeting the wrong body part when you do go for the glory kill. Oh, and I hope you enjoy deliberately not killing an enemy so that you can ensure that you kill them in the proper way once you've got everything else out of the way. I'm sure you'll love being chased by an enemy you don't want to shoot too much, or anywhere near, in case a stray bit of buckshot caves their skull in. I know this because every time I completed a level, I would go back and play it again, because there would inevitably be something I missed, or some challenge I didn't quite succeed in, because if you're not constantly actively looking for it, you'll likely stumble into the area you're supposed to complete the objective in and accidentally fuck it up. And I would breeze through these levels, because I would know exactly where I'm going, I would have already found most of the currencies and secrets on the map, and I didn't need to pick them up again. I would spend so much less time checking my map or flicking through menus to check challenges or spend resources. And it was so much more fun. Mindlessly murdering my way through the Infernal Horde was so much better when I could just do it without conditions or constraints. If this had been my experience from the beginning, then Doom would have been a top tier experience. No notes, thank you for your service. But imagine if I hadn't gone back to experience these levels again. Imagine I had been more thorough so that I had gotten every unlock and secret on my first playthrough. It would have been even more maddening. For reference on how much extra stuff is in this game, HowLongToBeat.com claims that a standard playthrough of Doom should take somewhere between 11 and 16 hours of playtime. A completionist run of the game apparently takes somewhere around 27. I have 31 hours in Doom, and I haven't touched the modes outside of the single player campaign. This game's progression system doubles the length of the game, which matches my math because I basically had to play every level twice. The only reason I managed to force myself through to the end was because I promised myself that I wouldn't do that for the last few levels. And even I, having actively made the effort to go back and collect things I missed, and with a playtime that exceeds a calculated completionist run, have not got all the upgrades. I didn't master every rune because the last one on the list required me to actively put myself at low health in order to trigger, which meant I would have to choose to play poorly and let the demons shoot me. I apparently didn't complete every mission challenge, which wasn't an issue in the end, because I think there's actually more upgrade points in the game than you can spend, which I did not know while playing the game. And I'll be fucked if I'm getting every pissing data log. And the funny thing is, looking at the achievements, very few people bothered to pursue the progression system with the fervour that I did. More people completed the entire campaign than completed every challenge in a single mission. More people played the online multiplayer of Doom than found all the weapon mods, all the suit tokens, or all the runes. I am officially in the minority for having actively engaged with the progression system of this game, and quite frankly, I believe that's for the best. My complaints about the progression system of this game aren't nullified by the fact that the majority of players didn't engage with it. It's supported by the fact, because while my chronic mind goblins did mean I had less experience, the fact that other players didn't really bother tells me that the system wasn't good enough for people to want to complete it. And from my experience, these players were right. The game was more fun when I wasn't engaging with the upgrades. I'll fucking scream if I ever have to find another goddamn hidden lever again. So walking away from Doom, I had a pretty good idea of what I didn't like about its progression. That it was too spread out, relied too much on mechanics that weren't the game's strong suit, and when it did lean into the combat, it actively counteracted the fantasy of the Doomslayer. But I couldn't say I had a good idea of how I'd change the game until I played. Roboquest is a first-person shooter that wears its Doom inspiration on its sleeve. Even just booting the game up, you can hear the attempt to evoke Doom's soundtrack before you even load into the game. The game's mechanics and presentation will be roughly familiar to anyone who's played Doom, right down to a mechanic similar to Doom's glory kills. There are, of course, many ways in which Roboquest is distinct from its inspiration, not least its visuals and tone, but also in its progression system. Roboquest is what I call an Iron Mode game. You have one life, and when you die, you have to start from the beginning. The game does feature meta progression that allows you to increase your base stats and skew the randomizer in your favour, so even when you fail, you can go into the next attempt swinging. What's also interesting is how the game handles rewards within each attempt. Roboquest is broken up into levels, and upon reaching the end of each level, you will receive a rank and corresponding reward. These ranks are determined by two things: how many enemies you defeated in the level, and how quickly you reach the exit. Enemies are finite in each level, and players are already incentivized to destroy them because doing so grants their character experience points that provide randomized upgrades. The exit rewards then encourage the player to get very good at defeating these enemies very quickly, and to always be moving towards the exit, which is further supported by the game's unlockable movement mechanics. When you finally beat the game, it will keep a record of the length of time that attempt took, and in doing so encourage players to try and beat that time on their next attempt. At all opportunities, Roboquest emphasizes speed, and violence as a means towards speed. What's weird about Roboquest is that there's nothing in the narrative to support this relentless pursuit of speed. Your character, a recently reawakened Guardian robot, is on a mission to defeat the rogue AI Iris and return the Oasis city she rules over back to the humans that she exiled and exterminated. But this is not a new development. Iris's control over the city is already a matter of history by the time you arrive there, and there's no imminent threat that inspires a sense of urgency. You're going to dethrone Iris because she's doing a bad thing, and your companion, Max, wants what she has. The goal is noble, but there's no need to be reckless about it. The game even tracks your defeats, with Max commenting when you reach an area you failed in on previous attempts, so canonically speaking, this is all happening in real time. Why wouldn't you be careful in that situation? Furthermore, you are exploring ground that has been inaccessible to humans for the longest time, so where's the sense of discovery? Sure, Roboquest does have objectives dotted around its levels, but they're not nearly as prevalent a feature as in Doom. I'm being a little facetious here. The discrepancy between Roboquest's game design and its narrative is because the latter is ultimately subservient to the former, which is also the case for Doom. Roboquest doesn't have a focus on exploration and secrets because it has a limited budget, because it's focused primarily on the combat, and because its levels are designed as procedural collages of segments that the player is expected to run through over and over again. Doom, on the other hand, can afford to put more exploration into its levels because each is static and bespoke, and the player is not intended to be running through them over and over. But I can't help but imagine if each of these games' different progression systems wouldn't better suit each other's narratives and aesthetics. My problem with Doom is that its progression system did not encourage me to behave like the Doomslayer, to hunt down my enemies relentlessly and with great haste. Furthermore, the looming threat of a demon incursion and the urgent pursuit of Olivia Pierce does not match with the ability to slowly plod your way around the environment, trying to see if a shotgun upgrade rolled under the sofa. But a system like Roboquest would reinforce that experience better. It would seem a little contrived, but it's also contrived in Roboquest's case, so what can you do? Similarly, Doom's strangely methodical and explorative approach would work better in a setting where you are playing as a robot exploring long-abandoned ruins, hunting for bits and pieces of other robots with which to upgrade yourself, and experimenting with different combat styles and tricks to gather data on effective machinocide. Hotline Miami, whilst not a first-person shooter like the other games, and perhaps not even a shooter at all depending on your playstyle, does offer an interesting alternative way of handling progression. The primary form of progression in Hotline Miami comes from racking up score in each level. More points means more unlocked weapons that can spawn randomly in the levels, as well as more masks to your character, which provide a variety of different modifiers to your playstyle. A good way to maximise your score in each level is to eliminate multiple enemies in quick succession, gaining combo bonuses as you do. Now, I'm not generally a fan of combo and grading systems in games, but I recognise how the quick, efficient, risky playstyle this encourages in the player reinforces the frantic, frenetic experience baked into the game's mechanics. And to Hotline Miami's credit, if that playstyle isn't working for you, approaching the game in a manner that results in lower scores won't necessarily leave you at a disadvantage. The rewards provided simply offer variety instead of power after all. As such, not only does this score system encourage the players towards the intended playstyle, but it also rewards players for mastering the game's mechanics without punishing struggling players in such a way that makes the game even harder for them. Hotline Miami does have a secret system in place as well. Hidden somewhere in each level is a minuscule purple square, each one revealing an individual letter when picked up. It's often hard to discover these in the carnage of completing each level, but the game provides you ample opportunity afterwards to pick through the debris on your way back out. Even then, however, they can be easy to miss. Unlike the weapons and masks, the game provides no context for these secrets. Their actual purpose is left up for the player to discover. I was unable to find every secret in each level during my playthrough, and their lack of mechanical benefit meant that I wasn't interested in replaying levels to look for them. As you might be able to predict from my track record, however, this didn't stop me from trying, of course. The game even provides a mask pretty early on, called Rasmus, whose description simply reads, "An eye for secrets." I played through the entire game wearing this mask, out of fear that equipping a different mask would result in me missing out on those juicy secrets that I was ultimately collecting simply for the sake of it. The irony, of course, being that by doing this, I was missing out on other aspects of the game. Unlocking a new mask at the end of each level meant very little to me, as I would always just go and equip Rasmus again in the next level regardless. As such, I basically cut myself off entirely from one form of progression and refused to engage with the different mutators that the other masks would have provided, many of which provided objective advantages to the player. I was handicapping both my power and progression for the sake of something completely meaningless to me. Fortunately, I was able to complete Hotline Miami without the help of the other masks, and I fully enjoyed my time with it. However, I couldn't help but look back at the list of masks I had unlocked, many of them untouched and gathering dust, and wonder if there was a better way.
Ooh, dear. Ooh, dear. Won't you spare me over till another year?
Coming back round to the first-person shooter, Call of Juarez Gunslinger seems to be the closest example in recent memory of what I describe as a perfect progression system. Much like Doom, the core of the game is a straightforward shooting gallery. Similar to Roboquest, Gunslinger makes use of an experience-based progression system, although it adds an extra layer to this in much the same fashion as Hotline Miami. Killing multiple enemies in short succession provides a ramping combo. The bigger the combo, the higher the experience payout, encouraging players to play aggressively and live out the fast-shooting bounty hunter fantasy its narrative tries to sell. The rewards for leveling up are points that can be used to buy the next stage of one of 3 skill trees, each tied to a specific weapon and playstyle. These provide direct bonuses to the player, keeping the mechanical power growing at roughly the same pace as the challenges thrown at them as they progress through the game's story. Reaching certain stages of each tree even provides the player with improved versions of the weapons available to them in each level. As such, players are rewarded not just for playing the game, but playing it well. As seems to be the pattern here, Gunslinger also has its own secret system. Each level contains a small number of nuggets of truth, which provide a small amount of experience for finding, but also provide historically accurate information regarding the people, places, and events that the game uses as part of its story, which is nice for players interested in such information while tying thematically with the story's hyperbolic narrative, reminding players who are more focused on execution than education, such as myself, to not treat the events of the game as actual history.
Hold on, were you attacked by Apaches? What happened to the cowboys?
Did I say they were Apaches?
I said Clanton's cowboys attacked me Apache style.
Much like Hotline Miami, Gunslinger provides an optional skill that makes it easy to find these secrets, although in this game it is not to the exclusion of other options. The skill itself is available pretty early on in one of the skill trees, and even if that specific skill tree is one the player isn't interested in pursuing, Gunslinger provides enough experience to potentially complete 2 skill trees by the end of the game, meaning little is lost if a player wants to drop a couple points into acquiring this skill. Ultimately, Call of Juarez Gunslinger is designed in such a way that avoids many of the nuisances the other games covered in this discussion provided. Unlike Doom, Gunslinger rewards the player for engaging with the core gameplay loop and excelling at it. Unlike Roboquest, the style of play this reward system encourages feels appropriate to the narrative being told. And unlike Hotline Miami, the secrets are not so inscrutably hidden as the term we are finding them, nor is aiding a player in finding these secrets an option that excludes other forms of progression. This isn't to say there aren't benefits to each game's design. Each of these approaches is going to work to a greater or lesser degree based more on who is playing the game and what experience they are looking to get out of it than anything else. And after all, as I said before, I enjoyed all the games listed here, even in spite of my relentless nitpicking. The ultimate point for me is that I found Roboquest, Hotline Miami, and Call of Juarez Gunslinger's progression systems less obstructive than Doom 2016's, as they better reinforce and incentivize their gameplay loops. For all the variety that Doom offered, which I have no reason to believe wasn't well intentioned, I found the extras it provided to be distractions and nuisances rather than rewards. Complexity did not, in this instance, create depth. I was jumping out of the swimming pool to pop into the paddling pool, taking one of the toys, and walking back to the swimming pool with the creeping feeling that I would have had more fun if I'd just stayed in one place.